American Revolution, also called the American Revolutionary War, was a war fought between Great Britain and its 13 colonies along the Atlantic Ocean in North America. This revolution, or war, which began on April 13, 1775, ended on September 3, 1783. In this video, we're going to tell you about the causes of the Revolutionary War.
The Quebec Acts were implemented to expand Britain's lands gained from France. They stated that the colonists must stay east of the Appalachian Mountains, north of Florida, and south of Maine. The colonists viewed it as an attack on the American colonies. They feared that Quebec would try to steal the American government.
George Grenville. George Grenville was the Prime Minister of the Parliament at the end of the French and Indian War. Grenville pushed tax ideas forward. He was responsible for enforcing the Navigation Act as well as passing the Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Quartering Act, and Currency Act. The Sugar Act was created to regain control of the colonies, but was seen by the colonists as taxation without representation. The Quartering Act stated that the colonists must be open to housing British soldiers if ordered to do so. The Stamp Act was created to pay for the British military living with colonists. And lastly, the Currency Act said that the colonists must now pay the British in specie, thus creating a universal currency system. Grenville is also responsible for passing the Writs of Assistance, which stated approval for random search warrants. As a result, these documents created power-hungry people and sparked anger within the colonies.
The Virginia Resolves affected the start of the American Revolution by pushing the colonists more towards a representative government. Some of the resolutions suggested that taxes should only be imposed by those chosen by the people to represent them. It also said all colonists should be given the same rights and privileges as if they were born and citizens of Britain.
Declaration of Rights and Grievances. It affected the American Revolution because the king replied it would show weakness for him and power for the colonists, so he ignored the letter, which was almost worse. This document showed some of the first type of protest towards the government and really showed how the king was and would act toward the colonists.
The Boston Massacre was a series of shots initially fired by the Redcoats. The British, aka the Redcoats, killed 5 people and injured 6 in these shootings. No one is really sure who shouted fire to initially start the shootings. In this political cartoon titled The Bloody Massacre by Paul Revere and Henry Pelham, the outbreak is depicted as the colonists being brutally attacked and harmed by the British soldiers. The cartoon implies that the British soldiers are the aggressors while the colonists are shown reacting to the British when in fact they had attacked the soldiers. The British soldiers are also depicted to look like they are enjoying the violence, particularly the soldier at the far end. There are also 2 signs that read Butcher's Hall and Customs House, both hanging directly over the British soldiers. Although this cartoon is not an accurate representation of the actual event, it is probably the most effective piece of war propaganda in American history. The Boston Tea Party was a political protest by the Sons of Liberty in 1773. The Sons of Liberty posed as local Native Americans and boarded a British ship carrying chests of tea. They then threw 342 chests of tea into the Boston harbor in protest of the taxes placed upon the colonies. In this political cartoon, we see the Sons of Liberty tossing crates of tea into the Boston harbor. However, this cartoon is slightly inaccurate as it shows the colonists brutally destroying the crates. It is exaggerated on the destruction of the crates. The colonists appear almost as savages, ripping the crates off the deck. How did Samuel Adams impact the American Revolution? The Committee of Correspondence coordinated a resistance to Tea Act and provided organization necessary to unite the colonies in opposition to Parliament. The Continental Congress irritated the king and led it to the Concord and Lexington War, which later led to the Revolutionary War.
How did Common Sense, the document, affect the American Revolution? It was inspirational to the average colonist. It gave them a sense of patriotism and independence. It persuaded them that they deserved more, and if they band together, they could work for it through protest against British rule.
How the Declaration of Independence affected the American Revolution. It was a declaration of independence as much as it was a declaration of war. In other words, it basically told the king that the colonies were seceding from the Parliament.
How did John Hancock affect the American Revolution? Being the president of the Continental Congress also irritated the king, and this led to the Concord and Lexington War, which later led to the Revolutionary War. He was also wealthy. Hancock's substantial wealth afforded him a great deal of independence, allowing him to pursue an education and gain prominent status in Boston as a leader of colonial resistance to parliamentary policy. He also signed the Declaration of Independence. By doing this, he risked his life by publicly supporting the succession of colonies from Britain. The document Letters from a Pennsylvania Farmer is when Dickinson argued that the colonies were sovereign in their internal affairs. He then argued that taxes laid upon the colonies by Parliament for the purpose of raising revenue rather than regulating trade were unconstitutional.
In conclusion, all of these events helped lead up to the beginning of the American Revolution.